So, breaking news. Kyrie Irving's not going to get a long-term extension. They'll bring him back, it seems, but they're not going to give him a long-term deal. So let's talk about this. The New York Daily News, Kristen Winfield talks about it, and let's get right into it. So she says last year, a source familiar with the inner workings of the Nets told her that James Harden would not be part of Brooklyn after the season. And guess what? That happened. Followed by Kyrie Irving and then ultimately Kevin Durant. A group of events that happened sent the Nets out of the spotlight. Now, James Harden's an afterthought, and it's kind of insane because if Kyrie leaves outright as a free agent this summer because he's disgruntled by the Nets' hardball stance on his availability, Brooklyn doesn't have the cap space to replace him with a star, which means Durant, entering year 16, could be playing with a questionable Ben Simmons, who's returning for back surgery, and a roster full of role players who might be on minimum contracts. Now, I want to hear your thoughts down below. What do you guys think of this? Will Kyrie return? What's this whole thing? I think he will, but it's interesting to see. And the first round exit at best if Durant stays to see it. According to multiple sources, Durant and the Nets have not spoken since they've been swept out the first round. Kevin Durant and the Brooklyn Nets have not talked. In layman terms, if Kyrie leaves the Nets, it wouldn't be a surprise if Durant becomes frustrated with the organization's ability to put championship pieces around him. They failed to do so at the beginning of last season with none of their top offseason acquisitions, James Johnson, DeAndre Bembry, or Jevon Carter, finishing the year with Brooklyn. This is why the Nets' hope of winning a championship hinges on a solution with Kyrie Irving, whose personal decision not to get vaccinated and unpredictable injury history have left the Nets hesitant and now, according to sources familiar with the Nets process, outright unwilling to give him a long-term extension. Irving played just 29 games this past year, restricted by the vaccine mandate and the Nets' decision not to incorporate him into the rotation for road games until mid-December. This season, he looked good, but the season before, he only played 54 games, missing several stretches because of personal reasons, and in his first season in Brooklyn, a nagging shoulder injury limited to only 20 games. So basically, he's played about 103 games in 3 seasons. Yet, this is the hand that the Nets gave themselves. They chose to live or die with Irving the second they signed him. Durant and DeAndre Jordan the same summer. And then they had to surrender all their cap flexibility in the Harden trade with Houston and still have no flexibility to sign free agents after replacing Harden's max contract with Ben Simmons' contract. And it's a scary reality. The Nets face not 4 years of Irving availability, but, lack thereof. And the alternative is coming a half-size, smaller shoe away from the trip to the NBA Finals, only to be pegged with Irving and Durant potentially leaving Brooklyn. And obviously reasons on Irving's side is a 1-year deal is unacceptable. He's not going to sign a 1-year deal. A player widely regarded as one of the most skilled NBA players, especially at the ball handling position of all time, whose injury history is questionable. Irving would never agree to a 1-year deal. If Irving gets hurt on the job, no matter how many consecutive games he played prior to the injury, he would no longer have long-term security if he signs a 1-year deal because the rest of his career would be 1-year deals. So he wouldn't do that. He wants a multi-year deal. This part, Irving must deal with himself. Had he not missed so many games for personal reasons 2 years ago, maybe the Nets would look at this decision not to get vaccinated as an outlier, as a mere personal choice amid the pandemic no one saw coming. But Irving, it was just kind of crazy that he missed so many games, and then he refused the vaccine. Had he gotten, jabbed with the reality, maybe, and have been forced to play, maybe Harden stays. Maybe the Nets go further in the first round. Maybe the front office views Irving as reliable and gives him the contract extension he desired. But however, that doesn't appear to be on the table, at least with what's going on. Irving has about a month to make a decision whether or not he'll opt into the final year of his contract. He probably might opt into it, maybe, I don't know. The team can clear enough cap space to sign him to a max of 35% of the salary cap, 4 years, $185 million, is not the right move, in my opinion. And this is why I think the Nets have the leverage. But in reality, Irving would only need to be creative. A team can trade a summertime free agent acquisition no sooner than December 15th, which means Irving can agree to a deal with either the Spurs, Pacers, Pistons, Magic, or Trailblazers, then be rerouted elsewhere with initial team compensation and draft assets and young players. If that happens, Irving's $36.5 million salary would come off the books, and the Nets would still have 121 on the payroll, which means they'd be $1 million under the $122 million salary cap. Or the Nets can bite the bullet, pray that Irving wants to win now, sign him to that long-term deal, and they can refuse a no trade clause on that deal. And if the availability issues continue, they can trade him. What they can't do, however, is let him walk as a free agent and replace him. If they let Irving walk as a free agent, he might not be the only one leaving Brooklyn. Kevin Durant might join him. So it kind of seems like the best thing for them to do is to stick with their current plan, keep Kyrie Irving, and ride it out. Now, Kevin Durant and Kyrie need star power. Kessler Edwards is a good player, but he's kind of the type of guys they need. They need shooters, long shooters around KD and Kyrie. And they need to keep Nick Claxton. That's the video. Peace.